The planet Targon loomed like a stone fortress beneath the twin suns, its icy winds as unwelcoming as its rulers. The Lupanari were feared across the stars, giant, woven beings bred for war, with claws like blades and honor woven into their DNA. Yet even empires rot from the core. The Empress, once the fiercest predator of her kind, had become a symbol of decay. She had not left the royal wing in over 2 years. Her once pristine armor no longer fit. Her roar, once enough to silence armies, had faded to silence behind palace walls. Dale Mercer didn't care for symbolism. He was human. He dealt in results. Dropped on the palace grounds with nothing but a duffel and a data tablet, he was met by a retinue that looked more like a security threat than a welcome party. Still, he didn't flinch. The guards led him into the grand hall, a vaulted chamber that might have inspired awe in most. He scanned it once and ignored it. His attention was solely fixed on the throne. Or more precisely, the creature slouched on it. She was massive, yes, but not in the way her kind was known for. Muscle had given way to weight, grace to lethargy. Her silver fur dulled to a mottled gray. Her eyes, half-lidded, flicked lazily in his direction. "So, you're the human they sent," she said. Her voice was still deep, still commanding, but it sagged with disuse. "I am," Dale replied flatly. "You're the Empress." That raised a few hackles, hers and her guards. One stepped forward. Dale didn't even glance his way. "You do not kneel," the Empress observed. "I'm not here to kneel," Dale answered. "I'm here to fix what's broken." Her lip curled. "You think I am broken?" "No. I think you're rotting. There's a difference." The silence that followed crackled like an unlit fuse. One more word and he might have lost his throat. But the Empress didn't lunge. She laughed instead, a hoarse, joyless thing that echoed through the hall. "You've got nerve, human. I'll enjoy breaking you. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to make you a weapon again." Later, in his quarters, bare, cold, efficient, Dale reviewed her medical files, psychological reports, footage from her last battle. The records were worse than expected. Not just physical degeneration, but symptoms of post-trauma withdrawal. She hadn't lost a battle. She'd been betrayed. Her most loyal general had staged a vote of no confidence, stripping her field authority, reducing her to a figurehead. Her spirit hadn't just been wounded, it had curled up to die. The next morning began before the suns rose. Dale entered the Empress's private court without invitation, tossed a datapad at her feet. "Regiment starts now. You'll eat only what I allow. Sleep at regimented hours. Physical drills every sunrise. Combat refreshers midday. Tactical analysis at night." She didn't move. "You forget your place." "No. I know exactly what it is. The question is whether you remember yours." The first drill was humiliating. She couldn't run. Could barely rise from the kneeling position without groaning. Her once proud frame struggled with simple body movements. Dale barked orders, never raising his voice. He didn't taunt or insult, he simply observed. Coldly. On day 3 she snapped. Midway through a resistance drill, she launched a clawed swipe toward his head. He didn't dodge. Her claws stopped inches away. He didn't flinch. Just met her gaze. "Feel better?" he asked. She growled. "You mock me." "No. I see the part of you that wants to fight. That's the part one came to find." For the first time, her gaze didn't carry hate. Just confusion. He didn't exploit it. He handed her a protein ration and walked away. By the end of week 1, she was dragging herself into the training pit without being summoned. Her pride wouldn't let her falter in front of him, even if every muscle screamed. In private, her aides whispered. This wasn't rehabilitation, it was cruelty. But the Empress didn't complain. One night, Dale found her alone in the training yard. No guards. No ceremony. She was staring at a faded hollow image of her during her last victorious campaign. "Do you think I can be her again?" she asked. "No," Dale said. She looked up, eyes narrowing. "You'll be something stronger," he added. Because that version of you never survived betrayal. This one will. She said nothing. But when she stood, there was purpose in her step. Dale returned to his quarters, marking the calendar. The Empress had bled, buckled, and burned. But beneath the ash, something was shifting. Not obedience. Not gratitude. Resolve. The days that followed broke the illusion of royalty. Every trace of privilege was stripped from her routine. Meals were controlled, lavish quarters replaced with a stripped-down chamber, and every comfort removed. Dale didn't compromise. Her mornings began before the twin suns broke the horizon, her body still stiff from the day before. No guards were permitted to assist. She struggled into motion under her own will. He pushed her relentlessly. No task was beneath her, crawling through mud, carrying weighted packs, executing tactical formations repeatedly until she collapsed. There was no praise. No insults. Just direction, brutal and exact. Dale didn't gloat, didn't gawk, didn't ease up. The lack of reaction unsettled her more than open scorn would have. She lashed out verbally at first. Mocked him. Threatened exile or death. He didn't flinch. When she called him a coward hiding behind routine, he responded. Discipline isn't cowardice. You'd know that if you hadn't abandoned yours. Her jaws clenched, but she said nothing. Later, she tried to manipulate him. Promises of riches, honorary titles, territory. Dale's answer was always the same. I don't need rewards. I'm already doing what I came for. Her anger simmered until it began to boil inward. Her body started changing faster than her mind. The soft mass of neglect began giving way to hard-earned muscle. Her breathing no longer wheezed after short drills. Movements became more precise, her footing more stable. Yet emotionally she resisted. She still avoided eye contact. Still refused to acknowledge his presence unless necessary. He observed this silently. He knew the fracture wasn't in her body, it was in her identity. The training only exposed it. Every time she failed, she felt the sting not as a physical shortcoming, but as a confirmation that the Empire no longer needed her. That she was obsolete. Then came the collapse. It wasn't during a particularly brutal drill. In fact, it was routine, a series of footwork transitions she'd been improving at. She misstepped, fell, caught herself with her claws, and froze. Mud clung to her fur. She stared at her own reflection in a pool beneath her. Dale waited, assuming she'd rise. But she didn't. Her shoulders slumped. Her breathing hitched. Then, almost imperceptibly, she whimpered. The Empress of the Lupanari whimpered. She began to shake. Not from pain, but from emotion. She muttered something low in her native dialect, unintelligible, voice thick with bitterness. Then came the sobs, deep, guttural, involuntary. They weren't loud. Just raw. Dale walked forward slowly. Not to console. Just to be near. She didn't look up. Her claws dug into the ground. I watched them vote me down, she muttered. Watched the ones I protected choose weakness. Then they left me in silence. Not to die. Just to be forgotten. Dale squatted beside her. You let yourself be forgotten. She looked at him, eyes wet and sharp. You think this is choice? I think survival always is, he said. They gave up on you. Fine. But you finished the job for them. Silence stretched. The wind howled over the palace wall. She sat up slowly, wiping mud from her arms. You know nothing of my kind. I know failure looks the same in any species, he replied. So does comeback. Her breathing calmed. No more tears. No anger either. Just exhaustion, but not from exertion, from shedding something old. Dale stood. You have two options now. Stay in the mud or start building. She didn't speak. But this time, she got up without help. The next morning, she was already waiting in the yard before he arrived. Her form wasn't perfect, her stance was still recovering, but her posture had changed. She was no longer dragging herself forward. She was walking with intent. She no longer questioned his routines. She performed them. Silently. Obediently. Not out of submission, but because she had finally stopped resisting herself. There was no gratitude in her eyes, but there was a fire that hadn't been there before. A flicker of defiance, but not toward Dale. Toward everything that had buried her under comfort and silence. He noted it and said nothing. For now, this was enough. She had finally started to fight the real war, the one inside her. Her limbs moved with intention now. What once had been sluggish repetition turned into honed coordination. She didn't speak during drills, didn't question commands. Dale noted the shift, her body adjusting faster, her gaze sharper. Her instincts were coming back, but she wasn't relying on them alone. She was calculating. He introduced combat drills without warning. Blunted weapons, pressure strikes, constant movement. She didn't hesitate. Her claws responded with renewed precision, her footwork steadier than weeks prior. The rage was gone. What remained was focus. Controlled, cold, effective. Dale escalated the challenge. Weighted armor, longer drills, variable terrain. She kept pace. Not flawlessly, but without excuse. Mistakes were acknowledged with a growl and corrected on the next rep. He began adding tactical modules, battlefield analysis, decision tree scenarios, real-time judgment simulations. She absorbed them silently, studying long into the night without being prompted. Her former advisors had once described her as raw fury. That wasn't who she was becoming now. This was something harder to define. During one sparring session, she stumbled. Not from exhaustion, but from overextending a strike. She recovered instantly, adjusted her form, and countered. Dale didn't comment. She knew. That was enough. In the following week, she began sparring against elite guards Dale selected himself. Each one younger, faster, or more physically dominant. She beat them all. Not with overwhelming strength, but by reading them, baiting, countering, conserving. Her mind had caught up to her body. After a particularly tight session, Dale handed her a data slate containing footage from her last campaign before her fall. She watched it in silence. Her movements had been wilder then, more primal, less precise. The victories had come through brute force. She studied it twice more before setting it aside. I fought like I had nothing to lose back then, she finally said. Now I fight because I remember what was nearly taken. He offered no response. He didn't need to. Word of her training leaked beyond palace walls. Whispers spread among the ranks. Some believed the stories were exaggerated. Others suspected desperation. No one expected a challenge. Until one came. A council-backed general, younger and ambitious, issued a formal request for combat demonstration, framed as tradition, but designed to shame. She accepted without flinching. As Dale walked her through simulated variations of the upcoming fight, she followed his analysis without hesitation. They worked through traps, counters, weaknesses in the general's form. Dale pressed her harder than ever. She never asked for mercy. She no longer needed motivation. She was driven by something internal now. Not revenge, not validation. Just momentum. One night, after drills ended, she remained seated in the training pit. Dale approached but didn't interrupt. After a long pause, she asked, "Why did they choose you?" "They didn't," he answered. "I volunteered." "Why?" "You were the only challenge worth the effort." She held his gaze, eyes unreadable. "You knew I might not come back." "I counted on it." She didn't respond. But the silence was no longer hostile. It was contemplative. From that point on, their exchanges shifted. Still professional, still silent during training, but sharper, more exact. They began working as a unit. No wasted motion. No need for repetition. He tested her limits repeatedly. She hit them, broke through, and kept going. By the time the council formalized the public match, she was already planning countermeasures. The Empress who had once crumbled under her own throne now studied opponents like a tactician, not a warlord. Her rage had been forged into something else. She trained not to prove her worth, but to reclaim her command. And Dale, for all his detachment, recognized that something rare had emerged. Not redemption. Resurgence. The arena was carved from the bones of ancient beasts, once a symbol of Lupanari dominance. It had not seen the Empress in over 3 cycles. She stepped onto the stone floor without ceremony, bearing no crest, no cloak, only the scars of earned labor, and the poise of disciplined wrath. Every eye watched her, some with awe, others with doubt. Dale remained in the background, silent, arms folded, gaze unwavering. He had done his part. What followed was hers alone. The challenger stood confident, armored in ornate plating, a favored general of the new regime. He saluted the crowd with theatrical ease, then turned to face her with a smirk. She gave no response, no signal of engagement. Her stillness unsettled him. When the match commenced, she didn't rush. No flair, no spectacle. She moved with eerie precision. The general charged, relying on bulk and speed. She parried. Minimal effort, maximum control. Her claws deflected his strikes like water flowing around stone. The crowd noticed. Cheers turned quiet. Confusion spread among the ranks who had expected a relic. The general faltered briefly. She didn't exploit it with brute retaliation. Instead, she redirected, rotated behind him, and struck only where balance faltered. His armor dulled the impact, but the message was clear: she wasn't fighting to entertain. She was dissecting him. Her restraint spoke louder than dominance. Every movement revealed how far she'd come. The feral instinct that once ruled her had been replaced with poise. She wasn't proving herself anymore. She was reminding them of what had been forgotten. He grew impatient. Reckless. A lunging attack exposed his flank. She sidestepped, spun, and drove her elbow into the back of his knee. The joint gave. He collapsed. She pinned him, claws at his throat. The arena fell silent. She didn't roar. Didn't gloat. She simply stood and walked away, leaving him alive. It wasn't mercy. It was judgment. The council had no choice but to acknowledge the result. Tradition demanded it. Titles were reinstated, authority returned. But the Empress didn't resume her old role immediately. She declined palace quarters, choosing instead to remain in the training barracks. She said little to the council. Her statements were brief, direct, tactical. She wasn't there for politics. Her focus had shifted. Her presence reshaped the military quickly. Veterans returned to service. Younger officers adjusted their tone. The chain of command realigned not through fear, but earned respect. She demanded no loyalty, she modeled it. Dale watched as the empire pivoted. The decay reversed not because of a restored throne, but because of what she had become in the process. Her transformation challenged every outdated belief the Lupanari had clung to. Power was no longer inherited, it was honed. One evening, after an extended strategy session, she approached him alone. No guards, no audience. "You did what no one else dared," she said. "You treated me like a soldier, not a sovereign." "You needed neither," Dale replied. "You needed to remember you were a weapon." She looked him over, the edge of formality dropping for the first time. "You never once flinched. Even when I failed. I didn't come here expecting perfection. Just potential. I could have killed you. You didn't." She took a breath, gazed distant for a moment. "Most would have begged for favor. You gave orders. I didn't train the Empress," he said. "I trained a warrior who happened to wear the title." There was no praise in his voice. No reverence. Just clarity. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she placed her clawed hand briefly on his shoulder, not as an equal, not as a superior, but as someone who understood the magnitude of what had passed between them. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reward. It was acknowledgement. And that was more powerful than any declaration. Orders began flowing from the Empress not as edicts but as strategies. Clear, precise, efficient. Her council, once bloated with advisors who drowned in ceremony, now operated with surgical focus. Dale noticed the ripple effect immediately. Troop formations tightened. Communications between divisions were no longer delayed by bureaucracy. Fleet readiness rose within weeks. She wasn't rebuilding the old empire, she was remaking it. But she didn't bask in control. She remained hands-on, inspecting outposts herself, joining war councils not to be seen but to dissect plans. Generals who once scoffed now followed her lead. She trained alongside recruits, not to prove herself, but to show them what was expected. Rank became performance-based again. Titles meant nothing if not backed by action. The Empress moved through her command like a blade through silk, elegant but dangerous. Dale watched how others responded. Fear didn't return, but discipline did. Morale surged in a way doctrine couldn't manufacture. Soldiers spoke her name with weight, not worship. She had become a symbol of restoration through resilience, not power. Weeks after the arena match, news came of hostile incursions at the border. A coalition of minor species once intimidated by the Lupanari now sought to exploit their weakened image. Rather than delegate, the Empress prepared to lead the response herself. Dale knew what this meant. She wasn't seeking battle, she was sealing perception. Victory on the battlefield would solidify everything she'd rebuilt. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about continuity. A statement that the Empire still had its fangs. She brought Dale into the war chamber not as a consultant, but as a fixed part of her strategic core. He was given unrestricted access to all levels of command. She never introduced him with title or flair. Just a nod. The officers understood immediately. He was the hand that reforged the claw. When the campaign launched, it moved with terrifying precision. Coordinated strikes, psychological misdirection, terrain advantage. Dale observed the decisions she made on the field, tactical but instinctive. She read the enemy faster than her advisors could. The Empress no longer chased glory. She hunted certainty. Within 12 days, the border was secure, the coalition fractured, their fleets scattered. Not a single Lupanari warship was lost. Captured enemies were treated with strict but lawful detainment. No cruelty. No message of dominance. Just absolute control. It marked a new era, one where victory was expected, not glorified. Upon return, the Empress didn't host celebration parades. She quietly reinstated old alliances and sent economic emissaries to stabilize relations. Her enemies had underestimated her body, her counsel, her spirit, but no one had anticipated her evolution. Dale did. And that's why he wasn't surprised when she summoned him late into the night. She handed him a sealed scroll. Not ceremonial. Functional. Inside, an unrestricted field command assignment with her personal seal. A free path to move within and beyond the Empire as he saw fit. No obligations. No debt. He looked at her, the question clear in his expression. "I'm not rewarding you," she said. "I'm giving you space. To do again what you did for me. Wherever it's needed." He studied her a moment longer. No pride gleamed in her eyes. Only conviction. "You're ready," he said finally. "No," she answered. "I'm just no longer afraid of becoming ready." He left before dawn. No fanfare, no farewell. Just a silent acknowledgement as he passed the outer gates, guards standing straighter, posture firmer. The Empire had reshaped itself from within. And the one who had nearly been erased by her own people now stood at its center, not as a tyrant, but as a sharpened consequence. Years would pass, and her reign would be remembered not for the return of power, but for the manner of its recovery. Quiet. Ruthless. Disciplined. Forged in failure, sealed by transformation. And in the deepest corners of the Lupanari memory, they would whisper not about her fall, but about the human who dared treat their broken Empress like a soldier worth rebuilding. That was her real redemption. And his legacy.